we are committed to working with state and local leaders to help secure our schools and tackle the difficult issue of mental health.
And that's just the start. Ahead of the president promising that he will make a visit to Florida to meet with those involved in this horrific tragedy, families of those injured and killed in this attack yesterday, the details of which and the timeline of which we're going to be getting shortly from Florida authorities. Let's go to Daily Mail White House reporter Francesca Chambers, U.S. News and World Report contributor Ashley Pratte. Ashley, the president was once again thrust into this role that's become all too common for presidents in recent decades, to be the consoler-in-chief. How did he do?
I think overall, addressing the fact that there was some underlying mental health issues here was a good move, but I do think that many Americans are getting very frustrated that when they're sending their kids off to school, that this could become a reality. And I think this is happening all too often. And so I think at this point, it would do more if the president were to say that something will be done to take action. People are getting fed up with the idea of thoughts and prayers. And, a lot of this is on Congress's hands now, whether or not we're going to look to common sense gun reform, whether or not this is going to be something that's going to, change at one point. And I do feel, I think, a lot of that frustration. I do see a lot of Americans, getting to the point of this is what now, counting the tragedies that are happening. And again, it's a very real fear, I think, on the minds of many Americans. And as the presidents, continue to play these roles, I think this is something that needs a larger discussion nationally and in Congress.
Francesca, one of the things I see in the part of both parties is they're prisoners of their philosophy. You're a Democrat and you're against reining in, guns. You will not bend when it comes to things like Hollywood and its influential role in violent games, movies that Republicans want to address, and vice versa, so that we never find a middle ground on what prompts the instability and people with such instability to purchase guns in the first place. But there does seem to be more than a middle ground to address both, and yet they don't. And that's, I guess, indicative of the environment in which we live, even when it comes to coming up with a budget accord or a host of other things. Are you any more optimistic now that in this latest tragedy we'll make any more progress here?
Well, Neil, you touched on a really important point, which is that last fall, after that Las Vegas shooting, it seemed that Republicans and Democrats might be coming together on this issue, potentially passing legislation related to those bump stocks that we heard so much about at that time. And then that passed. Several weeks went by, and we never saw anything happen with that. And, of course, Congress then moved on to other issues that are happening. Even today, here at the White House just finished a call on immigration reform and what's happening in the United States Senate on that point. And it came up on that call, I might add. Why isn't the president having a call on a shooting? Why is he having a call on immigration instead? And they, of course, pointed to the president's remarks this morning that lasted about 6 minutes on the shooting. But in those remarks, Neil, the president didn't come up with any specific call for legislation. He did mention mental health, but there has been no specific proposal by the White House with how to deal with this. And there are lawmakers calling on House Speaker Paul Ryan to bring legislation, as Ashley noted, to the floor of the House of Representatives.
Someone actually had presented to me the existing gun laws, some of the more popular ones, that do address issues like mental health and all that. We don't enforce them enough. I understand that. But even in touching that to enforce existing laws or to button them up, whatever the expression would be, there's a great reluctance to do that for fear that they're going to lead to additional laws. So it almost means you're stopped when you're trying to get going.
Well, do we want to lead to additional laws or additional deaths? And I think that that's a point now that is very poignant here in Congress. There is honestly a point at which there needs to be something done. And whether or not that is more laws, then that needs to be what happens. Because I think the problem here is...
What happens in the case of Chicago that has some of the strictest gun control laws in the country, right?
Yeah, and
also
they have one of the highest murder rates.
If people come back and say, well, that isn't the answer. So
yeah, I completely hear what you're saying, but at the same time, we look at this mental health issue, for example.
Right.
This shooter in the Florida shooting was able to purchase multiple weapons, including the one that was used within the last year.
Perfectly legally.
And he had multiple issues. I mean, there were multiple issues here. And the fact that
but he
if you
was
looked at
never
his social
labeled
media
someone
footprint,
with. But
right,
here's
but
the,
his social
here's the
media footprint
distinction.
shows that.
No,
Neil,
you're absolutely right. But here's the distinction I've learned from a lot of folks. Unless it's stamped somewhere on your record by somebody in an official capacity, these issues, they don't exist. They're invisible. They're unknown to people. So
and
Francesca
that is a huge problem.
That's a problem. Then is that the next step? Because a lot of people worry about be careful what you wish for, because that becomes a scarlet letter that those who deal with depression or those who all of a sudden are going to be marked and noted by authorities.
Well, Neil, and today Democratic lawmakers have specifically been bringing up the issue of mental health in response to President Trump's remarks and saying that he is the one who rolled back Obama-era regulation that would have made it more difficult for people with mental health issues to get guns. And so that is, of course, something that will continue to be a topic of discussion in the days and weeks, especially as President Trump heads to Florida, as he said today that he would do.
All right, guys, thank you very, very much.